be scared. This won't hurt you.
John Delancie discovered his love for acting at age 14 when he portrayed Henry V in a play at the private school he attended in Philadelphia. According to Delancie, he had done such an impressive job that people who knew the business told his parents to encourage him simply because he had the flair for performing. He resisted the idea of acting for quite a while. Although he continued to perform in school's plays, he continued in college doing more plays and went on to Juilliard. At age 36, he found himself with no other experience than acting. Eventually, he got work with Universal doing episodic TV and movies of the week. He appeared in Onion Field and Loving Couples. Later, he played a psychopathic killer on Days of Our Lives, but the role went through a dramatic change. He has appeared recently in the movie Get Smart Again and in a couple of series, Mission Impossible and Hooperman. By far, his best-known role is that of the menacing Q on Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm here at Timecon with John Delancie, who plays Q in Star Trek The Next Generation. He also plays Eugene Bradford in Days of Our Lives. Welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I've been a fan of yours for a long time, but I know you as Eugene Bradford more than I know you as Q. My first question to you is, what character do you like better, playing Q or playing Eugene?
Well, I guess it's more fun to play Eugene. Because most of the time I'm improvising. I wait until the last minute to figure out, kind of get an idea of what it is I'm going to say, and then I end up going out there like kind of a shot out of a cannon, and that's more fun. It's more skillful, I guess, to play Q because of the requirements of that type of show.
How did you get the part of Q?
I auditioned just like everybody else does. I walked in, sat down, did it, seemed to have nailed it. A couple days later, they called me back in and said, we'd like you to audition for Gene. I auditioned for Gene. He came up, put his arms around me and said, you make my words sound better than they are. This world out there of Star Trek fandom and everything else. I mean, it was a
family.
job.
You have 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
How do they feel about seeing their dad on TV playing these different parts?
Well, I think that when I came to pick up my son one day from school after the first or second episode or something like that, he ran up with his friends and he said, "Well, you see now, if you don't behave yourself, my dad will freeze you." So I knew that it had an effect there. And then the only other time that I seen him a little upset is that I did a show, what was it, Mission Impossible, where it's kind of in a darkened hotel room where I pull out a gun with a silencer and riddle this woman with bullets. And he looked at me, he looked at the television, he looked at me, and he was... When an episode, once when an episode of Star Trek came on, he said, "Oh, Star Trek, am I in this?" No. He goes, "Well, I was on the set," and I said, "Well, believe me, there's a big distance between being on the set and being on the show." So he just kind of he lives it. He lives it. It's his life. He's accustomed to being on sets. He's accustomed to this type of life. So he doesn't have a sense of it being any. This is the way life is, as far as he's concerned. I don't know whether it was written this way, but I imagined it was written this way. Is that the character of Q drags himself from one scene to the other in different costumes. Drag is the operative word. I mean, there was a time that I just seemed to be going from one costume to the next. The last 2 shows, I've remained in that somewhat stark and all too revealing uniform of the Starfleet, but it isn't a drag. I mean, it isn't a drag. Forgive me. It isn't difficult to do. I mean, it's not like a play where I have to run around backstage putting on costumes as quickly as I can to make it back out on stage. We wait the hour and a half it takes me to put on the next costume and pin it in and all that.
I went to a con last year, and I saw 2 people dressed up in your different Q costumes. Have you ever seen anybody dressed up? And what was your reaction when you saw people dressing up as Q? Well,
I don't know if I've really taken aback by the fact that everybody's actually gotten together to do this. I mean, you know, what you see in it is kind of secondary to the fact that some of them have traveled many, many miles just to be here and have spent a multitude of hours to put together a costume that, it's just there's a, bizarre comes to mind as being.
How long have you been acting? I mean, did you want to act as a child, or just something that came
I
about?
didn't want to act as a child, but I found myself acting as a child. I started out when I was 15, and I acted. And then the minute people encouraged me to do that, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And after a lawyer, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to be. So I went into political science when I was in, you know, the catch-all for liberal arts education. But then I continued to do plays and continued to work more and more in that area, and it ended up that by the time I was about 28 years old, with wildly overeducated in the area of theater, I had my crisis and realized that now I had crossed. It was too far. A kind of point of no return. There wasn't anything else I could do. So I decided that maybe I should be an actor.
Did you watch Star Trek when you were growing up, or?
Not really. I mean, Star Trek came out when I was in high school or just moving on to college, and I had better things to do with my evenings at that point. I mean, not so much better things to do, but I just wasn't watching television in that way. You know, when I was home on Saturday nights when I was kind of in junior high school, and there was no place for me to go. I mean, I didn't have a car, and my friends didn't have cars and what have you. Then I was, you know, Have Gun Will Travel and all those shows. But by the time Star Trek came around, I was out and about, and that meant that I ended up missing all that. From then on, I've never watched religiously any sort of program or anything.